It shouldn't have happened, but Major Simon Archer always felt a quiet, nameless jealousy toward Lieutenant Jack Bennett. Jack was his junior officer, obedient, precise, brave. Yet he never gave Simon even a second glance. Today, Simon had been assigned to Ashbourne Valley, a tense village of Hindus and Muslims. Eid al-Adha was approaching. The Hindu residents wanted to avoid hurting anyone's beliefs, asking that the cow not be sacrificed. The Muslim families, however, saw it as a sacred duty. Tension filled the air. Rumors spread like wildfire. Both sides prepared for confrontation. 2 days later, Eid arrived. The operation was ready. That night, in the freezing barracks, Major Simon lay awake thinking through every detail. When he rose to use the toilet, he slipped on the ice, twisting his ankle badly. The on-site doctor examined him and shook his head. A deep wound. Complete rest was ordered. If he ignored it, he might never heal. The pain was unbearable. Simon contacted battalion headquarters for a replacement. "It will be difficult to send another major on such short notice," came the reply. "Give command to Lieutenant Jack Bennett." And just like that, Simon's worst fear came true. The glory would now belong to Jack. Meanwhile, far away in the same valley, a man named Nathaniel Grant was preparing his own mission. He was a local agitator, a man who believed violence could solve what dialogue never could. For years, he had trained a small group of young men. Last year, he sent 5 of them to live secretly in Ashbourne Valley, disguised under Muslim names, blending into the community. Nathaniel's plan was simple and dangerous. When the Muslims gathered to perform the sacrifice, his men would create chaos, stop the ritual, spark confusion, and ignite a fight. Other local mischief makers were already waiting to join in. Yesterday had been Eid. Nathaniel smiled in satisfaction. His plan had worked perfectly. The spark was lit. Just then, the phone rang. He picked it up. "Hello, Mr. Grant." It was Ryan, the youngest of the 5 men sent on the mission. "Do you remember the plan?" Nathaniel asked, his tone steady but cautious. "Yes, Mr. Grant. I will give my life, but I will not let them kill our animals," Ryan replied firmly. "And if you are caught?" Nathaniel questioned. "I'll swallow the capsule," Ryan said calmly. Each man on the mission carried a cyanide capsule for that final choice. "Good," Nathaniel whispered. "How is Sarah?" "She's grown," Nathaniel smiled, calling softly. 5-year-old Sarah came running, her laughter filling the small courtyard. Ryan and Sarah were siblings, their parents lost in the riots. Since then, Nathaniel Grant had cared for them both like his own. Before Ryan left for the mission, his only worry was Sarah, but he trusted Nathaniel completely. When the call ended, Sarah ran off to play with the chickens. Nathaniel stood quietly, hands folded, and whispered a prayer. "Bless you, Ryan," he murmured. After the Eid prayers, the Muslims of Ashbourne Valley began preparing animals for sacrifice at the communal altar. Ryan, Victor, Sean, Aaron, and Jacob waited nearby, armed and ready. Aaron, their leader, gave the final signal. When they moved in, a group of local Hindu youths joined them. Before any sacrifice could begin, Aaron shouted a battle cry, and the boys rushed forward. But the soldiers were already there. Within moments, they surrounded the attackers. Aaron and Jacob fought fiercely. Aaron managed to slash 2 soldiers with his knife, but a bullet struck his chest. He collapsed, bleeding heavily, as chaos erupted. The boys had been trained, but they were no match for armed soldiers. Seeing Aaron fall, some of the young men swallowed their cyanide capsules, one after another, dying within moments. Lieutenant Jack Bennett stood frozen, his face pale with shock. If even one boy had survived, the army might have traced their leader. But all were gone. All except Ryan. He hadn't joined the attack yet. Hiding his knife, he slipped into the crowd disguised as a Muslim villager. No one recognized him. That was how he escaped. Just then, a small child ran from the nearby houses, shouting breathlessly, "The Hindus have set our homes on fire! Please, come quickly! Help us! Hearing this, the local men panicked. Their families, wives and children waiting for the sacrificial meat, were in danger. They rushed toward the burning homes. Lieutenant Jack Bennett, quick to react, signaled his men to move out. He ran at the front of the line, through the snowy village streets. Along the way, Jack saw a horrifying scene. A few young rioters, holding burning sticks, surrounding a frightened girl, laughing cruelly. Without hesitation, Jack stormed forward. He punched one of the boys hard in the jaw. Another swung a burning stick at him, but Jack ducked, grabbed the stick, and struck him back. Within moments, all three attackers were on the ground. "Come with me, miss," Jack said, taking the girl's trembling hand and leading her away from danger. He handed her over to two nearby villagers, then turned back toward the burning houses. The mob that had set the fires was made up of ordinary locals, men who hadn't expected the army to arrive so quickly. Fear spread among them. A few tried to resist, but quick punches and warning shots into the air scattered them. The soldiers surrounded the area while Muslim villagers began pouring water on their homes, trying desperately to save what they could. A few people suffered light burns, but thanks to Jack's quick action, no major lives were lost. A few days later, Emily Ross, a reporter for the national television network, arrived in Ashbourne Valley to interview the man everyone was calling a hero, Lieutenant Jack Bennett, the soldier who had prevented a massacre in the snow. "Lieutenant Bennett," Emily said with a warm smile, "your name and your courage have become legendary here." Jack smiled politely. His bravery had made him a hero overnight, and now the media wanted his story. "Tell me about your family," Emily asked gently. Jack started the car, paused for a moment, and replied quietly, "Everything's fine. I have no one of my own." Emily looked surprised. "What do you mean, no one of your own?" Jack looked away, his eyes distant. The smile on his face faded into silence. "In my childhood," Jack Bennett began softly, "my parents, my siblings, even my grandparents, all of them were lost in a flood." He paused. "I grew up in an orphanage." The faint smile on Jack's face reflected quiet strength and deep patience. Emily Ross was speechless, watching this young soldier who had endured so much yet spoke with such calm. Perhaps, she thought, this land and its people were all he truly had left. "And what about marriage?" Emily asked, her voice light yet curious. Jack looked down for a moment. "I'd like to get married someday, but there's no family left to speak for me." Emily leaned forward, her smile gentle. "I'll find a girl for you," she said warmly. "And don't ever say you have no one. From now on, I'm your older sister. You're the son of every parent in this country, the friend of every man, and the brother of every woman." Jack chuckled softly, his eyes lighting up. "Except," he said playfully, "for the woman I'll marry." Both of them laughed, a laughter that filled the room with warmth and ease. Outside the studio, Major Simon Archer stood silently behind the glass wall. He watched the scene, Jack laughing with Emily, and something inside him twisted. If only that injury hadn't happened. That could have been me, he thought bitterly. He clenched his fists. Why didn't Jack Bennett die that day? Cut down by the enemy's knives, he muttered under his breath. Pain shot through his injured ankle as he turned away, and he groaned in frustration. Inside, Emily faced the camera once more. "I ask everyone watching," she said with heartfelt conviction, "to write letters to this brave son of our country, to tell him he is not alone. He is a brother, a son, and a friend to us all." The interview ended, and the story of Lieutenant Jack Bennett spread across the nation like wildfire. A few days later, the postman arrived at the regiment, carrying a large bundle of mail. Each envelope was neatly marked, Lieutenant Jack Bennett. Jack was astonished. He had never received personal mail before. He carried the letters back to his barracks, sat down on his bunk, and began opening them, one by one. The first letter read, "I'm writing from Denver. From today, you have not one, but 3 sons, and you have 2 younger brothers. We'll be waiting for you during the holidays. Your father." A wave of emotion rushed through Jack. His hands trembled, his eyes blurred with tears. One by one, he opened the rest of the letters. and each message carried the same warmth and love. You are our son. You are our brother. You are family to us. For the first time in years, Jack felt truly connected. Not to one person, but to an entire nation that had embraced him as their own. That evening, he took out a pen and paper and began writing replies to every single letter. By morning, a pile of neatly sealed envelopes sat on his desk, each carrying his gratitude, his warmth, his heart. When the postman returned a week later, he brought even more letters, from cities, villages, even remote mountain towns. Each message was filled with affection, pride, and love. Lieutenant Jack Bennett, once an orphan, had now become the son, the brother, the hero of an entire nation. During the holidays, Jack decided to travel across the country to meet the very people who had written to him. The thought filled his heart with purpose and peace. That night, he picked up the final envelope from the stack, the very last letter. But as he began reading, his smile slowly turned into surprise, and then laughter. "Oh, hero." That's how the letter began. "Why did you lie and say you have no one? How could you forget me? How could you hide it from everyone after making your vows to me? We may argue sometimes, but what husband and wife don't? Now stop being angry and accept it. And this time when you come, bring me an Ashbourne Valley shawl. Your wife, Maha." "Maha," Jack repeated softly, as if tasting the name for the first time. Until now, people had written to him calling him son, brother, nephew. But this woman, she had called him husband. He placed the letter on his chest and lay back on his bed, smiling quietly. "Your wife," he whispered, and a strange warmth spread through his soul. Days turned into weeks, weeks into months, and more letters came from Maha, each one playful, teasing, and filled with affection. Sometimes she asked for little gifts. "This time, bring me some walnuts from Ashbourne Valley," she wrote. "Next time, dried apricots. You know I love them." At first, Jack laughed it off, thinking it was just a fan's silly idea of romance. But slowly, the tone of her letters began to touch his heart. The words "your wife" made his pulse quicken. He started waiting eagerly for her letters. Even the regiment noticed. Rumors spread. Their hero, Lieutenant Jack Bennett, was secretly married, and his mysterious wife still wrote him letters, even in the age of telephones. One afternoon, Major Simon Archer approached him. "Are you married, Lieutenant?" Simon asked, his tone sharp but curious. Jack hesitated, then said softly, "Yes, sir. I suppose I am." "I didn't know," Simon replied dryly, turning away, his face stiff. "Neither did I." Jack muttered under his breath, half smiling. But there was one problem. Maha's letters never had an address, no phone number, no clue where she lived. As his annual leave approached, Jack decided he had to find her. He had to know, who was this woman, the stranger, who called herself his wife? Then one day, another letter arrived. "There's a magic show happening in Bellevue on the 25th of this month. I'm not much of a fan of such things, but my friend insists we go. If you come, I'll be wearing jasmine bracelets. My brother always buys them for his wife, and I thought I'd wear them too, just for you. Your wife, Maha, Bellevue." "The 25th? Jack whispered to himself, smiling. His official leave began on the 27th, but he applied for 2 extra days. He was going to Bellevue, the old city of Dukes, to finally meet the mysterious woman who had called herself his wife. The show had already begun. The crowd was dense, hundreds gathered under the glowing lights. How would I even find Maha here? Jack thought, scanning the sea of faces. But the soldier in him was fearless, bold, decisive. He leapt onto the stage, startling the magician mid-trick. "Announce the name of my wife, Maha, for your next magic," he said loudly. The magician hesitated, confused by the sudden intrusion. But seeing Jack's uniform, his confidence, he complied. "Lieutenant Jack's wife, Maha." In the dim auditorium, a girl suddenly stood up. Startled, trembling, holding her head. Though the hall was dark, for Jack the world suddenly lit up. His search was over. He jumped off the stage and reached her within seconds. The magician, trying to calm the chaos, resumed his performance. "So, you are my wife," he said, sitting beside her. "I wrote that letter just for fun. And you actually came," Maha whispered, gripping her friend's hand nervously. Jack followed them outside. "Wait," he called, handing her a bundle of envelopes. "These are replies to all the letters you sent me." Maha looked at him, speechless. "How many letters did you write in jest, Maha? You made me travel halfway from Ashbourne to Bellevue." She smiled faintly. "So, you're turning this joke into reality now?" "Yes," he said earnestly. "Will you marry me?" Her eyes widened. Then she laughed softly and began to run. "Answer me," Jack called out from behind. But she slipped into a luxurious car parked nearby, still smiling, waiting for her friend. Jack turned to the friend. "Tell me where she lives." The friend hesitated. After a pause, she whispered, "Palace." The next morning, Jack stood before the grand gates of the palace. "Whom do you wish to see?" a guard asked. He hesitated for a moment. "Maha." "Princess's teacher?" the guard asked, surprised. So she was the Duke of Bellevue's tutor. The puzzle pieces started falling into place. After permission was granted over the intercom, 2 attendants led him inside to a guest room. Moments later, Maha entered, visibly anxious. "Why did you come here?" she asked quietly. He smiled gently. "I was thinking last night. How can a girl say yes to a man she knows nothing about? Not his home, not his income." He took a deep breath. "So here's the truth. My salary is $30,000. Next year it'll rise a little. I don't own a house yet, but I have savings in the bank. In a few years it'll be enough to buy a small home." He paused, looking straight into her eyes. "Now say yes." Maha stood silent, her expression empty, yet her heart visibly trembling. "I have to leave Bellevue tomorrow on the 12 o'clock train for Ashtonville," Lieutenant Jack Bennett said quietly. "I have to meet my parents there. Think about it. If your answer is yes, come to the station before noon." The princess's teacher didn't mind the unexpected visit, and even the Duke didn't object. So Jack left, while the teacher, Maha, stood motionless, her eyes filled with quiet confusion. "Sir, just a moment," Jack said quickly, running toward Major Collins. Major Collins, from Rivershire, was home on vacation, visiting the shrine with his wife and daughter. Seeing Jack, surprise flickered across his face. He hadn't expected to meet him there. "Lieutenant Jack Bennett." "You're truly a hero," Major Collins said warmly. "I saw your interview on TV. And who is this young lady with you?" Mrs. Collins, cheerful and bright, added, "Yes, who is she?" "My future wife," Jack replied confidently. "Well, bless you both. What a perfect match," she smiled. At that moment, a young Indian man, Raman, wandered near the courtyard. He couldn't return to Pandit Narayan, and staying disguised in North Vale had become dangerous. He had hitched a ride to Malton City, missing his sister, plotting his next move. When he saw Jack, fury burned in his eyes. "That soldier," he muttered, teeth clenched. "If he hadn't acted like a hero, my friends would still be alive, and I wouldn't be wandering like this." Raman lunged, knife in hand, slashing Jack's right arm. Jack stumbled in pain, unprepared. Before Raman could strike again, Major Collins seized him, pinning him down like a trapped bird. Jack was rushed to the military hospital. Maha stayed by his side, pale and anxious. By the time he was discharged, dusk had painted the sky purple. Maha and her friend were ready to leave. "Say yes," Jack whispered, voice calm but tender. Maha stayed silent. "I'll make you my queen," he said, eyes bright. "I'll build a special throne for you. Like the throne of Solomon, where you can sit and rule." Even in her sadness, a faint smile curved Maha's lips. "Like the throne of Solomon," she murmured. "Exactly," Jack said, his voice steady, unwavering. Maha turned to leave, silent. She walked down the long corridor, then stopped. Turning back, her eyes glistened with tears, carrying something deeper. "Yes," she said simply. Later, after Jack returned to duty following his leave to visit his parents in Ashtonville, a letter awaited him. From Emily Ross, the journalist who had once interviewed him. She had asked about his recovery and offered to help find a good match for him. Instead of replying by letter, Jack picked up the phone. "The girl has been found," he said, smiling, "and it's because of you." "How?" Emily asked, surprised. Jack chuckled, recounting how the mysterious writer of those letters, his wife in jest, had turned out to be Maha. Emily smiled, charmed by this real-life fairy tale. Meanwhile, Raman was handed over to the intelligence corps in Molten City. Before he could take his cyanide capsule, he was searched, and intelligence officers extracted critical information about those fueling violence between the two nations. The details were swiftly passed to higher authorities, who dispatched an elite team on a secret mission. "Return as heroes," the brigadier commanded. The mission was led by Major Richard Saunders, and among the selected few was Jack Bennett. When Princess Maha returned to Bellevue Palace, her parents awaited her. The Duchess embraced her warmly, while Maha smiled softly, unaware of the storm about to strike. The Duke of Bellevue approached, placing a proud kiss on her forehead. "Maha," he said, his voice full of delight, "we have accepted a proposal for you, from Prince Amar of the Sultanate of Oman. The wedding will be at the end of this year." The world seemed to crumble beneath Maha's feet. She had already given her heart, and her yes, to another man. Not just anyone, but Jack Bennett, the humble soldier who had once saved her life. Without a word, she turned and ran from the grand hall, tears stinging her eyes. "Shame," murmured the Duchess, a faint smile playing on her lips as she exchanged a knowing glance with her husband. But inside, Maha's soul was in turmoil. She was one of those rare people who found no joy in luxury or title. The endless routines of royalty, the guards, the courtiers, the rules, all suffocated her. That's why she often escaped the palace with Clara, her only real friend, to see the world beyond the gates. Now, her heart belonged to a warrior, the same man who had risked his life to save her honor. What had begun as playful letters had grown into a love so deep it frightened her. Jack had little, a modest salary, a rented home, a simple dream, yet he had offered her everything that mattered, his heart. And she had decided she would leave behind silk dresses and diamond shoes to live as his ordinary wife. But how could she explain this to her parents, the Duke and Duchess, who had already promised her to a prince? She cried quietly, unaware that fate was already moving to ease her pain. When she had gone to meet Jack at the Ashtonville station, she wore a veil to hide her identity. But when she briefly lifted it, a news reporter caught sight of her. Hungry for a story, he followed her to the shrine of Molten City and secretly photographed her meeting with Jack. 3 days later, the morning newspaper screamed across Bellevue. "Duke's daughter, Princess Maha of Bellevue, in love with a common soldier." "Don't go." The words escaped her trembling lips, broken by sobs. "Pray for me. I will return," Jack Bennett said, placing both hands gently over her head, his eyes calm, steady as steel. Under the cover of night, soldiers disguised as wandering monks in saffron robes crossed the border and surrounded the residence of the old scholar Nathaniel Narayan, deep in occupied North Vale. The air was still until the first sound of gunfire cracked through the silence. Several armed guards rushed forward, but they could not withstand the precision and strength of the Bellevue commandos. Nathaniel Narayan, awakened by the chaos, appeared in the doorway with a pistol. Jack pushed forward. The old man fired. But before the bullet could strike, Jack grabbed his wrist, deflecting the shot toward the ceiling, and wrestled the weapon from him. Nathaniel froze, eyes wide, body trembling. "In the name of God," Jack whispered, pulling the trigger twice. The scholar fell lifelessly to the ground. Major Richard Saunders stormed in moments later. Seeing Narayan, he nodded sharply. "Set the fire," he ordered. Flames consumed the wooden walls as the soldiers withdrew into the night. A faint cry pierced through the roar of the flames. A child's cry. "Lieutenant Bennett, move!" Major Saunders shouted. "That voice, a little girl." Jack hesitated, turning toward the sound. "Your life is worth more than that child's. Move!" But Jack could not leave. He rushed back through thick smoke and heat, and moments later emerged, coughing, eyes stinging, holding a frightened little girl in his arms. It was Raman's younger sister. By the time he reached the street, his unit had vanished. Indian soldiers had surrounded the area. There was no escape. Jack handed the girl to one of the soldiers, raised his hands in surrender. His weapon was taken, and he was led away, a prisoner of war. Major Saunders and the remaining team crossed the border into Bellevue's Allied territory. From there, they sent word to headquarters. Lieutenant Jack Bennett had been captured. The news spread quickly and hit hard. The government appealed for clemency, but the opposing forces refused. They could never release the man who had infiltrated their stronghold and slain their officers. Princess Maha was shattered. Her bright world had dimmed into endless grief. Years had passed. Princess Maha's father, the Duke of Bellevue, had arranged her marriage to an industrial magnate from Ashtonville. She spent half the year in London, the other half in Ashtonville. Life went on, at least on the surface. Inside, Maha remained frozen in the same moment, the night Jack Bennett had gone to war. 2 decades had passed. The tension between the nations had eased considerably. One afternoon, a young woman arrived at a grand house in Riverview, holding a weathered envelope. It was addressed to Princess Maha of Bellevue. The letter had traveled far and wide, returned twice because the palace it was meant for no longer existed, now a government hospital. Finally, someone had come to deliver it by hand. "I'm Sita," the young woman began softly. "My father told me that Lieutenant Jack Bennett was captured while saving my life. I was an orphan. My brother died in captivity in Pakistan. A kind colonel adopted me. He had no children of his own, so I called him Papa. This letter was given to him by Lieutenant Bennett himself. Papa couldn't deliver it. His duties never allowed him. But now that I'm grown, I wanted to come myself. My life exists because of Lieutenant Bennett. And I wanted to repay that debt." After Sita rested, Princess Maha sat quietly in her drawing room. The trembling letter was clutched in her hands. The paper had yellowed with age, yet the handwriting was unmistakable. Bold, steady, familiar. She unfolded it slowly, her heart racing. "My dearest Maha, I don't know if this letter will ever reach you, but still I must try. I love you, more than words can hold. I used to dream that my head rested in your lap, while your fingers brushed through my hair. Maybe that's only possible now. In heaven, the hour of my hanging draws near, but my heart is calm, because it carries you. Remember this always. I loved you truly, completely. We'll meet again, in the world beyond. Your warrior, Jack." The letter slipped from her trembling hands as tears filled her eyes. What a story, what an ending. As she leaned forward to pick it up, something else fell from the envelope. A small, torn piece of newspaper, yellowed and burnt at the edges. In faint print, the headline read, "A Duke's Daughter Falls for a Common Soldier." And just above it, written in pen, "The Princess of the Land of Fairies, who trusted the promise of a humble soldier and gave him her heart." Princess Maha's tears dropped onto Jack's final words, blurring the ink, the last trace of a love that had crossed time, war, and death itself.